This is from two guys that had no idea what they were getting themselves into in a city they never lived in before.
Yeah, it's
And
rough.
look at this. You're allowing yourself to breathe is really what you guys are doing. You're allowing yourself to breathe and go, take a deep breath, look at it, and then make change and fix it. And then one of the things I really love about your story is you're not stopping. You're not talking about, oh yeah, so we did all that and now we're just going to rest on our laurels. You're already talking about the next thing that you're going to do. And the whole thing about this entire podcast that we're doing right now, the focus hasn't been on revenue. Isn't that crazy? Go to any other podcast or anything else. Yeah. Social media, it's always about revenue. And I love that about it because revenue is a byproduct of a really well-run business. It'll come and it'll produce the margins that it's supposed to produce if we don't focus on that.
Profit is the byproduct of
yes.
it.
Yeah, profit.
Massive.
From Sera Systems and Billy Go, this is No BS with Billy Stevens and Landon Brewer, the unfiltered, straight-shooting podcast that dives deep into the heart of home service trades to uncover the truth about running your business. You're entering the No BS zone with Billy and Landon.
Hey everybody, welcome to the No BS with Billy and Landon. Today we have special guest here. We have Drew and Bobby Gay from Mr. Reliable down in Houston, Texas, and they have a fantastic story they want to share with everybody. And we're so excited to have you guys. Thanks for coming here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I even got Landon up.
Are people just like sick and tired of looking at and hearing you and I, so you had to like drag people in, or you know, did you really actually plan this out and know that there was a fantastic story?
Actually, they were tired of hearing just you. They were fine with me.
Tired of hearing me, tired of looking at you.
Yeah, there you go. No, actually, they came up. So as you know, we have people come into Billy Go and they sit and hang out with our staff and learn what we do here. And that's what they brought their entire team here today. They have some partners that they brought into the business, and they wanted to learn more about how we run Billy Go, how we use Sera. And so when they leave here today, they're going to have a whole wealth of knowledge that they didn't have before. But before we even do all that, their story is amazing what they've done. And I just wanted it told because these guys literally moved across the country to start a business in a city they never lived in and start a business they didn't know anything about. And then how successful that business has become.
Nutcases, right? My kind of nutcases.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're just as crazy as we are. So I had to get them on here. I mean, that's the kind of entrepreneurship that I just love. I mean, they literally left where they were living, went to a foreign town. Houston, Texas is foreign, right? It's part of Texas, but, you know, I live in Dallas, so we have a rivalry, if you will. But anyway, I just thought it's a fantastic story. So I want them to tell us a little bit about it today and how they've doubled their business this year from last year when a lot of companies are struggling.
Wow.
This is crazy. This is a crazy story. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves and tell your story for us.
Yeah, so I grew up in Georgia, but I migrated up to Charleston, South Carolina, where my dad had grown up, and I went there for college, and my brother started an HVAC company. I had no intention of getting in the field, but at some point, I decided to come work as a comfort advisor with him, and was there for a lot of the growth from like 1 to 7 million, and just really saw like, man, this industry is incredible, you know, like what you can grow and build, and ultimately decided that I was crazy enough that I wanted to start my own business. And at the time I had one son, and I wanted to get back to a major city like I'd grown up in Atlanta. And so I just looked at the different things that would matter for an HVAC company, like how hot is it? How cold is it? How long is that season? What's the humidity like? And will my knowledge be applicable? And so just kind of narrowed it down to different cities and came and checked out Houston. And to me, it didn't seem like I wanted to mitigate that it wasn't like some markets like Florida where you have a lot of very inexpensive installs. I want to make sure there was good business to be had. And so just decided to completely start from scratch and just move here with a pregnant wife. And a lot of major changes. My dad was kind of in a holding pattern in Florida because he had just sold his house of 20-something years in Georgia, moved there temporarily, and I was kind of walking through the business plan and strategy with him, and we were talking enough about it, and he can tell you some about the business he came from, but it has slowed down from COVID. And so I was like, hey, I've got the only grandkids. You want to move here and like be my ops manager or something? And so he lives 3 minutes from me, in Katy, which is right outside of Houston. And I can say that, starting a business from scratch, we learned a lot. In retrospect, if there was a business to buy, I would have absolutely bought it. But you learn a lot of lessons in the grind. So, we've had a lot of changes over the past few years, but, I'll let him jump in a little bit.
So what year was that you guys just decided to start up?
Yeah, that was 21?
Yeah, you moved a year early.
Well, I moved like I moved at the beginning of summer, and I worked at ARS, Big Bad ARS, and I wanted to see what I could take away from a $60 million company, like what to do and what not to do. Learned a lot of mostly just what not to do, but that's very valuable in business too. And was working 80+ hour weeks, worked at a few different companies over that first summer, and realized this market has so much potential in Houston. And so then you kind of came, I think, after that summer, but it would have been 21. You kind of came at the end. I think we moved you.
I say it 3 World Series ago. It was Atlanta and the Astros. I figured we can't lose here.
Yeah.
I love it. So, but it was after the big, the big kind of boom, that artificial boom that a lot of people got because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah. So we went live. And so luckily, so my dad and I both read a lot, are always trying to learn. And I listen to a million podcasts, audiobooks. I barely ever listen to music if I'm in the car. So I'm just, I don't know, he calls it a life learner. I'm just constantly trying to learn, right? And so lucky enough, we got connected with Dan Antonelli at KickCharge before we ever even had a website, right? Just looking at branding vehicles, and decided to come right out the gate with KickCharge. So we went live in January of 2022, and we're going through our 3rd summer right now.
Wow.
So Bobby, what's your background?
Well, as Drew mentioned, I'm a native of Charleston, South Carolina. Went to the Citadel, the military school there. It's kind of fun. If you can picture the idea of having a name tag as a freshman, it just says gay on it. There was
yeah, last
pretty
name's rough.
Half the upperclassmen looked at me and said, "I'm not going to give you any crap. You're catching enough." So anyway,
this was during or after the don't ask, don't tell phase.
No, this is yeah. No, it was. Met a lot of really cool people there. I mean, because the folks that can survive in that kind of an environment, where you got to have a sense of humor. So, got into sales early on in technology, mostly healthcare information systems related kinds of things. The kind today that would run an entire Memorial Hermann or Baylor, or which was at the time a $6 to $8 million sale. Now it's a $200 million sale. It takes a year and a half to install, and so. Wow. So pretty much spent most of my life in sales in some way or another. Most of it was technology. And then my wife and I started a company where we taught sales organizations how to improve performance. And it was about identifying, we had a methodology, it's about identifying their best practice patterns and showing them how to, replicate their best players across the entire team. And so what does that have to do with HVAC? Nothing. But when Drew called me and said, "Hey, look, what do you think?" I started thinking through, and I thought, I've spent 33 years talking to organizations, identifying what works and doesn't work, and then putting processes together that would enable them to scale, the right things and eliminate the wrong, and be able to measure what's going on here so that it's just not seems like analysis. So, came here, started looking around at it, and I started feeling a little bit more comfortable, even though I didn't really understand all of the mechanics of it all. But, so that's our goal. Our goal is to grow this company and in a way that where the process is bigger than the players. And, we tell our people that, and not everybody wants to stay on board with that. They got their own flair or they're cowboy of some sort. And I tell the folks, look, we're going to follow the process. If you don't like the process, suggest ways to make it better. I'd like to see all of your fingerprints all over the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to make suggestions and we include your stuff in the process, then you got to follow your own suggestions.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, logical that way. Anyway, the net of it is that, that's what I'm doing is I'm looking at our processes, things like Drew has an app that runs on his phone where he can do a load calculation by measuring every room in the house, which one's in northeast, west, and south, what kind of windows are facing this, are there, et cetera. To just say you need 4.5 tons, 5 tons of air conditioning or whatever.
He built that. So I gave him
Nice.
hey, here's the parameters I need to go by. We currently just have it in this old school spreadsheet. And we had other guys using it that they would mess up the cells and they would mess up the formula. And we were like, how do we make this dummy proof? And how do we make this faster to save time for the tech in the field or the sales guy or whatever it may be at the time? And so we're not doing any like coding or anything like that. It's like codeless programming, but we saw that we could build an app in that way. So we built it doing load calcs. And then the latest thing that he's working on now is you guys do at Platform Partners and places you've been, call by call management. And so we've been selling over the phone for a couple of years now, having been to Gettle and checked all those things out. But what we found is that if you have a list of things that you expect the tech to do, you can do a lot of training. And a lot of them, once they get inside that door, like they're going to revert back to their old ways in certain ways. And if you give them a checklist, a lot of them are going to pencil whip it. And so he's in the middle of finishing up an app that we're going to just use internal that just drives home the call by call process. That when a return is undersized, that it flags something and notifies the call by call manager. So they're measuring returns, they're checking static pressure. There's boundaries that needs to be within. And if it's outside of it, it flags it, because even if you have these steps that people go by, there's still human error. If you got a call by call manager that's managing 7-8 people, right? There's still going to be human error when you're on the fly drinking from a fire hose in the middle of summer, right? So we were just like, the things that they could pencil whip, let's make it a photo. You can't manipulate a photo of a static pressure reading or what is your delta T or we've got it all on apps for field piece with our Bluetooth tools. And so we've been working on it for a while. A
lot of moving parts.
It's like an airflow app. Is like all of the components that go into, static pressure, return size, et cetera.
Yes and no. We're not like trying to take something that already exists, like field piece where they'll already have that, or measure quick where they'll already have that. It's if these are our steps that we want the technician to go by to nail.
Process.
Yeah, the process. Like that, we have a section called pre-arrival, and then we have a section that's called indoor equipment, outdoor equipment, and then game plan. And in each section, right, you go through, fill out the information. Some of it's going to be type in field, some of it's click a bubble, some of it's upload a picture. But we did it in a way that it's going to trigger the things that we're trying to focus on, which is like airflow, duct design, all that. But you get away from the fact that this tech spent 15 minutes at this house. How did you spend 15 minutes at someone's house? How is that possible? I don't care if you know that it's a capacitor. We spent up to $250 for that phone call. You went over there and collected enough for a cap, and it wasn't enough to cover margins on the whole deal. Like, you need to look at the entire system, and that begins with sitting down with the customer, getting the history of the system, getting permission from them to look at the entire system to see if you find anything else that may be wrong here. And then when you come back and tell them that that today's problem is just a capacitor, and I can get you up and running with that. But what is contributing to the overall issues you have is X, Y, and Z. And we've got some quotes together for that. So it's just being more thorough and making it not an option.
It's interesting that you can take and say, give me the inputs for this. And then on the back side of it, you can create formulas that say, okay, so if it's this, it's this. For example, and Drew mentioned, one of the processes inside of it is called indoor equipment. We have them answer a question: how many systems are going to be replaced here, or how many systems, period, and then how many returns are on system one. And then based on that, it'll ask you, okay, you said 3 returns. So what's the height, width of return 1, return 2, return 3 for system 1? And then there's a calculation. It says this is 12 by 20, it's 240 divided by 200. That's 1.2 tons of air that can process. Then in the next section, outdoors, asks what size unit and it adds up all of the returns, and it says what size unit is this outside, and it says 5 tons, or and internally you've got 3.5 tons of capability in processing the air. It just throws a flag up, says this is an opportunity for additional duct work.
I think this is fantastic. I mean, let's just back up a second. You guys moved to this city that you've never been to before. You start a company from scratch with 0 customers, and you're building technology as you go. This is what we talk about every week. This is
great.
It comes back to this thing. I always point back to this. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're not willing to do. These guys are seeing that there's an issue, and they're trying to solve it. Right?
Well, I think
move the company forward.
It's a slow, methodical, sometimes tedious, even boring, just commitment to a process. And it's not, hey, let's, like Drew is just voracious. He's kind of all over social media, looking at stuff. Like you just see him around everywhere, right? But what I haven't heard him say so far in the podcast is like, I heard this guru say that we had to tell customers this and we'll increase our sales. Right? He's talking about, all of the stuff that, quite frankly, a lot of the stuff that I spent my career doing and building and operating in that way. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that this wasn't just like, hey, let's add more steps to create more work for anyone. This is, my grandfather, his dad used to be, an engineering manager, and he would hire engineers, and he'd go around to different schools. And he would say, I'm not looking for the A students. I'm looking for the B students that can pour piss out of a boot. And what we're trying to figure out is how do we hold these guys that are the right fit for the company accountable to a process so that you can't scale chaos. So what we want is we'd rather have these B students that are all following the same process, and it leads to higher average tickets. You're actually helping the customer. It's not like you're selling them junk, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to make this system last longer, and you're driving home a process because, at the end of the day, we've had retention problems along the way where you interview amazingly. You make it through 6 months, a year, or whatever, and then you eventually show us, that you can't show up on time, you can't communicate correctly, or you're doing it different than the other guy that we've been talking about for so long. And so this is just this is not optional. Here's what our process is, and stick to it.
It's little details like, okay, some guy gets excited over the fact that this looks like a sale and forgets to measure the attic opening.
Right.
And the install crew shows up with a furnace that won't fit in the attic. And so, we force them to take a measurement of the opening in the attic. Mm-hmm. And if it's 20 inches or less, a warning goes up and a message goes to the CBC manager that says,
this shit won't fit. Yeah. It's like you go through just a regular call. It could be a capacitor, it could be a heat tip, it could be whatever. And you try and go through regular steps you'll do in a regular home that do focus a lot around airflow and other metrics that you're going to check, pressures, whatever, depending on the type of call. By the end, if they do the game plan with the call-by-call manager and it says, did we sell a system here, or, right? Is there an install crew being dispatched? You click a button, and then it enables what we call a pickle. It's a pre-install checklist. So then that comes down, and now you fill that out so that then the call-by-call manager or whoever's going to order the equipment can order everything correctly, or find an opportunity in that list that hey, your copper lines are undersized, or whatever else is is incorrect here, and let's add that to the ticket. But, you know, we came out the gate with branding. We were Sera day one. We were even doing like private labeling day one. And I'll tell you, like, you know, the first couple years were a little bumpy, but this past year we really caught our stride. And you know, I think at the beginning of the year we probably had 450 members against, you know, 1.2 million or something close to that, right? Now we're at 2.2 and change on the year. We're over 1,000 members, and we have roughly a couple thousand more people in our database. And so now, like, we're going to leverage Chirp and other stuff to outbound those people to hopefully keep, you know, our techs busy in the off season and maybe hire against that busyness.
Yep.
And so for us, like, you know, I've used Service Titan at my brother's company, and what I was impressed by was like how big this company is and how bad the resources were. It's like, how do you have so much money and you constantly are hearing that the customer support is tough and you don't place a focus on that? And to me, it was so hard when we onboarded at his company. And we went from like, at his company, we went from Google Calendar and QuickBooks to Service Titan, right? And you guys were kind of newer on the scene, and I like what you were standing for, you know, like build your price book around the right margins. Because if not, if you're a new contractor, like everyone falls victim to the, hey, I've got $3,000 in equipment costs, maybe got $1,000 in labor. On a day's work, we're going to double that and call it $8,000. So we made $4,000 that day. You didn't. And so like we've learned you didn't make $4,000 that day. Do you forget that you've got phones to pay for, insurance, you know, you've got vehicles on the road, you got a warehouse, you got all these other costs. So your net is more than likely negative, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, using Sera to plug everything in, gross it up, and we're still trying to get better with that. Now we're here to learn about how we can be as efficient as possible and capture if the techs come into the office for a training, if time is spent by the install crew picking up equipment, capture every bit of that and put it in your pricing and become as efficient as possible, you know?
Did you guys have, you know, or either of you have a relatively thorough understanding of financials when you came into it, or is that something that was learned along the way?
Well, you can talk about what we've recently gone through. And
no, I would say definitely not. I mean, that's an easy answer. And it's funny for people, like, you know, you have the PE influx that happened and everyone's throwing around, oh, I run a 20% net, you know, I have 20+% EBITDA. I would say that more than likely the majority of them actually don't. If you're looking at like burden labor and all this stuff, like, and you forget, like, the owner, just because you took home 20% doesn't mean that the business made that. You just starved your business. But so we're still learning that and getting better at it. And, you know, so I think that next year we really want to figure out how do we get as efficient as possible in all categories so that we can drive towards at least a 15% net, I would say, because, you know, the goal for us is to grow the company and then over the next, you know, decade or so, make an exit or two. And, I don't think the goal is like, hey, I got to be at a 20% net, because people are talking about that on social media. Because, you know, if I'm private equity and I'm buying a company, do I want to buy the most efficient company out there, or do I want to buy an opportunity, right? So, like, I think that if you're hitting at least a 15, you're already going to be relatively higher price. You know, you get up to 20 and you're up there with, you know, the Abacuses and, you know, ARS and all that in our market. So we want to be able to deliver, you know, great quality and reasonable pricing that we can justify and stand behind, but also do like really great work, you know? So, and everyone wants to do that, but, you know,
we're not winning on price. I mean, one of the things I never anticipated when I came into this, when you start a company, as all of you know, when it begins, everybody does everything. So I never expected to hear the desperation in people's voices when it's 93 degrees in their house, they're pregnant and got 2 kids, you know? And so we've done things that have impressed people. By the way, we've got over 200 5-star reviews with a 4.9 average right now. So
that's awesome.
And it's been funny because Drew there have been people left us a 1-star review, and on one occasion, we didn't even sell the guy anything.
It's usually when it happens.
Yeah,
The
he
1
was
star is
pissed
when you
off.
don't do anything.
He was pissed off by the price he got from us.
Yeah, he spent like 10 minutes on the phone. He left me a 1-star review.
Yeah, and so then Drew goes back and says, "Why'd you do that?" And they got to talking. The next thing you know, the guy buys 2 systems at $17,000 from us. Okay, and so, and that wasn't the cheapest thing on the block, And so my point is that we've done some things, and I give him credit for this, for being creative. I mean, we've bought a bunch of window units. If we find out on Saturday you need to replace your system, we can't do it till Monday. We just bring window units and put them in the bedrooms.
If we've got a deposit or financing approved. But,
Sure.
we usually keep just like 5 or so, and we'll give 2 to a customer. But, I mean,
The big thing for us is we're looking down the road, and as Drew said, you can't scale chaos or randomness. And so, our goal is to make it so that when we get down the road and we're either hiring new employees or maybe doing an acquisition, that, we roll it up under the processes that we have and say, here's how we do it. Okay.
Mm.
And when it's measurable, it's manageable. And, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do it with your theme, Billy, is to be as efficient as we can with as least number of resources.
Well, and you'll find the bad hires much faster. If you can hold them accountable to this process, they'll show you that they're either not going to do it or whatever it may be, right? Quicker than, trying to do what we've done, which is like we talk about it all the time. You can role play, you can do whatever you want, but as soon as they walk in that door, if no one's watching or they don't have a Rilla in their pocket or something, right? Like they're going to do what they do, and then you try and ask yourself, like, how's this guy got such a higher average ticket and what's he doing? And like, and instead it's like, hey, one thing that the mantra we were building the company around when we started was, he used to work with companies that were anything from a 5-person company up to like Fortune 5 companies, some massive multi-billion-dollar organizations. And he would go in and teach their sales team that you're selling outcomes. You're not selling the variable speed system because of, how cool it's got all these speeds. Like the customer doesn't care about the speeds. They don't care about any of that. They care about how much money is it going to save me? Is it going to give me comfort? Is it going to, be quieter? Like it's got to affect me in a way that affects my wallet, or it's some outcome that I care about, right? And so he used to teach that a lot. But there was a company he went to in Savannah, Georgia, that he went in their conference room or whatever, and it had up on the wall, it said, ain't none of us as smart as all of us. And so we've always kind of had the vision that like we talk to our guys and we're like, what's going on out there? Like, what are you losing time on? What can we do better? And we're always trying to like just sharpen the blade. And
isn't it nice to have more than 2 levers? I mean, the 2 levers that any company has at this point without efficiency built into their process is raise your price or beat down your suppliers.
Yeah.
That's the 2 levers everybody has, and those levers are not enough in this modern age.
Yeah.
You have to have an efficient process and built through, and I just love how y'all just tackled this. And the funny thing is, you're not sitting around here talking about your revenue. You're talking about all this process and efficiency and everything.
Yeah, I think that follows. Like, I think that if you've got a good process, like we learned a lot of hard lessons in the first couple of years on like doing the wrong marketing or just having the wrong people or whatever it may be, right? And moving forward, we just want to do it as uniform as we can, right? If you know that this thing is great and we can get everyone to do this, then the customer experience gets to be the same each time. Now it's just how do we, if we're all in lockstep together and we all have our stride, how do we do that as efficient as possible, right? Like I told these guys, I said, when you go and Billy go, I mean, they're probably 2 or 3 times they were when we were here like almost 3 years ago. And I said, it will be quiet. It will be quiet. Yeah. Okay. I've been to big organizations. I've done tours of $60, $100 million companies. It's not quiet. And you guys at 50 will probably be half the decibel rating as the other 50, right? And it's like, it's great, chop it up, have a good time. We want everyone to love each other and CSRs to have that culture and whatever. But what I'm talking is that you guys are relying on your technology. You've got, I mean, to us, like hearing that like the second time a customer uses you guys, that they're 40% of them are booking online. The first thing I thought was, I was like, holy shit, I could have less people in the office if we're like booking or could use them on something else, you know? And it's the messaging to the customer. You know, you got the CSR that's saying, hey, next time you call in, by the way, you can book this online. And the technician in the house saying, hey, you can book this online. And your marketing message is saying that book it online, 1 hour arrival windows, you know? Yeah. And so it's us just trying to like learn how to always do it better. Like, I don't care about top line revenue, all these cool things, and people are making all this money. Like for us, like, you know, owning a business is not fun a lot of days. It can be very stressful. But when I look at Billy, I know he's already had all the war stories, but he's as cool as a cucumber. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause he's got well-oiled machine going. And I'm like, you know, I don't have to be in my 50s for that to happen. I could be still in my 30s and having my business run to a point where they barely need me. You know, that's right. That's an attractive business to an outside investor. Is how do you get a guy like me to barely have my phone ring? That's the goal. Not because of a sale, but that means you have a business. You're not working in it all day. That thing's running itself. That's an attractive asset.
Very attractive. Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's the thing that really blows people's mind when they come to Billy Go. They just can't believe that this business is happening. I mean, I guess when you first came here, I think the plumbing side of the business was having a meeting and you still couldn't tell.
Yeah, you can't hear them.
It's crazy.
They're all whispering.
I guess. I don't know. But I mean, we couldn't hear them, right? And so you're right. I mean, when the second time a customer uses us, 40% of them are going online. And so that is like exactly what you're saying. It's an efficient process. We don't have any contact with that customer until we arrive. So we've taken a lot of steps out. And the beauty of that is they're on our website doing this, on their customer portal, which is pushing us, our SEO, to the very first page, right? It's putting us in position 1, 2, or 3. And so it's all a calculated idea of how we just dominate and grow these businesses. And that was the whole idea behind Sera. And I'm very proud of you guys because you jumped on Sera, you know, as we're growing together, right? We're improving. We learned from you. You've been in some beta projects. What beta project were you in last?
We're in the QuickBooks integration for QuickBooks Online.
All right.
Yeah. And I will stop and say this, like, you know, when I talk to other people that are like, you know, what are you using? House Call Pro, Sera, Service Titan, whatever. And I just say, look, for what I know, since we've been with Sera, there's been all these different changes, but the price hasn't changed. So for every bolt-on, we're not getting a bunch of price increases along the way, you know. I think that I talked to a guy that was on Service Titan that's switching to Sera right now. He's onboarding, and he's coming over to pay 1/5 of what he was paying over there. Mm-hmm. But for me, like, you know, my dad was always selling, you know, software, and he said that there was this one software where it would take, you know, half the implementation time just to turn a bunch of stuff off.
Yeah, that's the big thing about companies like Service Titan, and I have never even seen one screen of that. All I've listened to is the people talking about the difficulties they've had. And the company he's talking about is SAP, and they put so much functionality into the thing over time that you're basically chained to your own Frankenstein over time. You can't just roll out new features that, you know, that best done would require a rewrite. So you don't have that problem of baggage that you're dragging around with you, and your technology that you're using to do this is more advanced. So you're more nimble, and I think the future is brighter. they're going to wind up having to just defend themselves over time, I think.
Well, I think that like it for Sera, there's two things I'd love to see you guys understand that like, one, you know, there's an entire industry of consultants that help someone get onto that software over there. And if you can just remember that as you're building that, you know, this is for contractors by a contractor, right? And if we don't make it too complicated and we focus on the things that matter, and you don't have to have an outside consultant show you how to use 75% of it over the next 3 years, right?
For 6 figures.
Yeah, then you can focus that time on growing and building your business. And another thing is that I don't think enough Sera users know that stat of 40% of second-time customers here at Billy Go are using the online booking feature. I think that Sera users need to remember that, hey, guys, we got to leverage the technology that's in front of you, because when summer comes around, everyone's drinking from a fire hose if things are going right, and you're doing way too many things. You know, like some people are like, what do you do all day? And I could look at my calendar mid-summer and I have nothing on my calendar, but somehow I'm slammed the entire day. I remember I counted one day, I had 116 phone calls from when I woke up to when I went to bed. Some of them were 30 seconds with my service manager, boom, 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 go. And it's your head spinning. But, you know, we're at that growth stage where like we'll eventually have management and team in place where like I can focus on marketing spend and sales process and stuff that I should focus on. But I think that you get so busy that you don't leverage what's right in front of you. Like as soon as we get back, this isn't like we're here to take notes and then go home and burn the paper. Like we're going home to say, because I'm thinking like, okay, if we want to grow next year and we want to get to, maybe double or close to that.
5 million. You should go to 5 from where you are.
Yeah. If we could, I think that if we could leverage the technology, we may be able to even keep the same office staff, you know, because we're not using it as smart as we could. And so it's like reminding the Sera users that like, hey guys, y'all need to lean heavier on this online booking feature, right? And setting the dispatch strategy, right? To book the right tech and the nearest tech and the tech that has been there last kind of thing. And so you can get so caught up in just, plugging holes in the bucket that just coming here for that, if we only learned that, and then we're also wanting to track job time efficiency is, I've always told people that like, I would much rather have a $5 million company that's doing $1 million in earnings than a $10 million company that's doing $1 million in earnings. Why the hell would I want double the staff? That sounds terrible. Yeah. Everyone's sick. This one's got this one has jury duty. This one has that. Like, dude, no. I would rather have a much more efficient, well-oiled machine than scale it so I can talk about top line with my boys. Like, I don't care about that. If no one ever learns who I am, that would be ideal to me. You know what I mean? I could have avoided all podcasts my whole career, made a bunch of money, and see you later. And if they never hear about me, cool. But if my employees had a great experience and if my customers had a great experience, and if I was able to use that to help my dad retire and provide my kids with a great life, cool. That's what
awesome.
I'm looking for.
That's so awesome.
Hey, what's been the biggest surprise, or the thing that you didn't anticipate going into the business? Is there one thing that kind of stands out?
I'll answer that from somebody outside of the trade. I never realized that you can reduce all of this stuff down to math. I mean, there are a lot of what we call chuck in a truck that'll come into a house and say, how many square feet is it? 2,500. Oh, you need 3.5 tons. Well, air conditioning comes in cubic feet. So you can literally measure this stuff and get scientific answers. And the same is true over on what Billy's doing with Sera. If you've got the data there and you can mine it the right way, then, that's what we want to get really good at, because there's no magic in all of this. And I think Drew would back me up. From what I hear, the housing costs in Houston are fairly low because the labor costs were fairly low. My home was built in the 80s, and in 40% of the situations where we replace a system, we have to put an additional return in because they were focusing on building the home and getting some, cookie cutter approach to the HVAC system. And they just never did measurements and never teed it up the right way. So now you got homes that have 5 tons of air conditioning, 3.5 tons of ductwork. You got, the opposite where there's humidity problems and things like that. And so, we're one of the few companies that'll go out there and actually do these measurements.
Love it.
And we had one lady.
That's amazing. I mean, everybody, this, since you weren't in the space, but for years, the mantra was like, go sell the box. The money's in the box, replace the box. Yep. And the box is sure, it's a component of it, but it's not the challenge that's facing most homeowners.
We've had people that they have a home that, this lady called Drew one day and he came out and she'd already gotten 3 bids. Her question was, what will it cost me to replace my 3-ton system? Drew goes in there and looks all the way around it and says, did you know your system right now is 3.5? Everybody else had just bid the 3 tons, and there's been multiple occasions where in our, we've got technicians that have 22, 23 years experience, and that's all they do is live, eat, and breathe that stuff.
Well, so there's more to that, but my answer would be the same, is that understanding that, like, this is a mindset thing. If you're an owner that's constantly focused on, like, man, my prices are too high, or like the customer cares, like, or you've got techs that think that way, they're shopping from their own wallet. Okay. Yep. What people want is we are very much like measure twice, cut once, right? This is work smarter, not harder. This is go in and be thorough and come out with more, but doing it in an honest way with integrity. You're serving them better. If I rip out a 3-ton system that was designed incorrectly and throw back in a 3-ton system, or I listen to that customer that says, hey, my system ran too long this summer, I'd like to go with the 4-ton, and half the contract, 80% of them probably at least, would just drop that in there and not change the infrastructure, not change the copper lines, not look at the electrical, not increase the, return and supply. You're doing a disservice. You are truly just tracing the revenue, but you're not educating them in a way, and they can understand it. Because if you understand your craft, I think that you don't understand your craft well enough if you can't speak to a customer in ways that they care about, right? Why do I care? I say that to them. I said, look, your return is undersized, and here's what it's going to do. Your compressor is going to fail. Your blower is going to fail. And I say, well, why do you care? You've lived here for 7 years, and it seems like to you that it's done just fine. Well, now you're replacing your system. So if you want to talk about longevity, the best shot we got is doing the best pre-design, the best install, and the best maintenance to get the most longevity. And so do you want to protect this investment, or do you want to do this again in 9 years? It's up to you. I'm trying to tell you that we can save thousands by doing some small edits on the front end. And we gain a lot of respect out of customers. And let me tell you, this isn't just the $250,000 house. We had like a $10 million house we were in recently where all of it was designed incorrectly. It was 6 systems. And the first system we replaced was for $20,000, and they need 5 more. Yeah. We will do at least $100,000 more at this house. And it was because the first 2 guys didn't tell him that, didn't walk him through that in a way that she could understand. Yep. She's a multimillionaire housewife that sits at home. What does she know? And they have horses and just do all these other things. What does she know about airflow? Talk to them in a way that they understand, in a way that's valuable to them. Don't talk about these features that they don't care about. Figure out what they care about.
I mean, if you look at our 5-star reviews or all of our reviews, a significant percentage of them talk about how the tech explained it to me in a language I could understand exactly what's going on here.
So you're just not out selling boxes. You're trying to run a business to take care of customers the right way. You'll get the box when it's time, but customers now you're getting, yes. And that has been what I've been preaching for 28 years. You got to get customers for life. As soon as we saw this dip after COVID, all the box chasers immediately dropped 30 and 40% in revenue. And we kept growing. I think we're going to be up 30 or 40% ourselves in another year of just growth over growth.
Another thing we're doing is that I would bet you dollars to donuts that every time somebody comes in for an interview, the first question Drew asks them is, what do you want in the future? What is, if it's successful a year from now or 5 years from now, what does that look like for you? I mean, we got people that are 40 years old and addicts. It's time for them to start getting out of the attic and start managing as we grow the company. And if they're interested in that, that's fine. Other people are going to say, I'm staying in the attic until the last day I work. But we're trying to, and it's not just a check in the box question. If you want to be more of a manager or you want to learn a certain skill or leadership thing, we're going to invest in helping them do that because we're looking for employees for life too.
Right.
I mean, so our plan is to grow the company organically. Ultimately do some acquisitions, and the guys and girls that are, that want to take on more and get to the next level. That's what.
So this is what I'll say, that the most common answer I get from technicians is, I want to start my own business. I'm like, what are you waiting for? Well, I want to learn a little bit more about heat pumps. I want to learn more about this. And I said, stop what you're doing right now. Take the time now to learn about business, okay? Because every tech can get smarter and better and all that. But I want you to understand that, at least to my knowledge, the single largest location in the United States is run by an accountant. That dude can't work on a system to save his life, and it's in Phoenix, right? What does he know about heat pumps? Does he care about heat pumps? He doesn't care about heat pumps. So I tell him, I say, look, if you're just using these extra years to learn about technical stuff, come work for us for 2 years, okay? I'll show you how to do branding, marketing. I'll show you the back-end books. I'll put you with different people so that if you're going to come into this market, you're not another $8,000 install that I'm up against. I'll show you how you can run this in a way that you'll stay in business, because it doesn't matter if you have $1 million to start your business. If you do it the wrong way, you will run out of cash, okay? So come on and we'll show you what to focus on, and you don't have to learn another inch of technical abilities. Just stay right where you're at and focus on the back end. And then you have a better shot at not being the guy that runs out of business with the $100,000 contractor truck, after 5 years.
And then at the end of the day, what's the likelihood that person's going to actually do that or stay with us?
They're going to be like,
Exactly.
this
Or
sucks.
go to somebody else that won't even ask them the question.
Oh, they'll come right back.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're preparing them for success, which is getting you the success. And if they leave, they leave, but you're still growing from it, and they grew from it. And that's exactly what we do here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what we do.
We're like 10 or 11 people in the business, okay? Mm-hmm. We've already had 2 people leave and come back, okay?
Yeah.
Now, again, doesn't mean everybody's going to stay around forever, but and
the grass was not greener,
Yeah.
Right. Chaos.
And we just
chaos is the secret to success.
We've had people get money whipped out of our company because the guys lied to them. There's no way they're going to make what this guy's telling them that they're going to get, but they don't know any better. So I don't know. We're focusing on, scalability, not in that order. Customers, scalability, employees, growing them for the long term. And
this is from 2 guys that had no idea what they were getting themselves into in a city they never lived in before.
Yeah, it's
and
rough.
look at this. I mean, check this out. I mean, it's just because.
Yeah, go Stros.
Yeah, now you're Astro fans, huh?
Yeah, now we are. Yeah. Well, we have a guy on our team. His name is Mike. He's killer. He's one of these guys where he'd never been in the industry, and I saw how he was in social settings. I saw how he had been with his company for a while, and I was like, I don't care what he does, but that guy's gonna come work for me. And we knew we wanted to grow and scale this thing and sell at some point. And I was like, he could be me. Like he could be the next me. Yeah. And so he's a plan that comes in behind me, but huge Astros fans. And so we get all our vendors that are giving us tickets. So he's going to see him in the playoffs.
Awesome.
Tomorrow.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
And Amanda, the lady you met earlier, she was our AT&T rep programmed all our phones and iPads.
Oh,
like
cool.
2.5, 3 years. And I was like,
Pied Piper.
yeah, I was like, you're so
What are you guys
amazing
doing
with
hiring out
customer
of the
service.
industry?
Yeah, I was like,
What are you doing?
You're so amazing with customer service. I said, you leave, like, what do you make right now? And she's telling me, and I was like, we can start you out here. And then, you know, she wanted to go to school for something. And I said, the goal was financial there. And I said, no, we'll grow you out of a CSR dispatch role into a call-by-call manager. You make way more across your career much faster, and you don't have to take on student loans. Like, there's so much that if you can just find out their why, like what's the end goal with the customer, with the employee, with anyone, and you start talking to that. Stop just talking, you know, trash. Focus on what outcome are they looking for, and can we do that together or not? And be honest, you know.
So you're building a business with non-HVAC people.
Mostly, yeah. At least half
What a
of us.
concept.
We got a guy named Austin. Drew met him in a social setting. The guy had got to talking with him. He said, yeah, I kind of want to get into the HVAC business, and my parents are willing to pay for me to go to trade school. Well, it was getting ready to be the hot season. And Drew says, why don't you come work for us as a dispatcher? You'll learn the business from that side. And
yeah,
then
see if you'd like it. If you like scheduling them out, and picture yourself like, man, I'm going to be this one running this 8:30 p.m. call or not. And then instead of going to 18 months in trade school, when you're done, I told them about, like, I was like, Hiller has in Tennessee, they've got like a 30-day program, and it'll cost a lot less. And then you go learn that. You're going to be drinking from a fire hose. You'll forget half of what you learned. You'll come back with an EPA, and then we'll just put you on the ground. You train with our service manager. And then, so we've had him out in the field, and he loves it. You know,
That's awesome.
He's learning it. We've done some work at his parents' house, and they're just super glad that he's been able to learn the trade, and just a guy off the street, you know, like didn't know anything about the trades.
One last thing I'd like to say is about processes is that when I taught all these sales organizations how to use the process we had developed for them, one of the things we'd do is we'd map out, here's what your process looks like from prospecting to closure. And they'd see this chart and they'd go, my God, look at how many steps there are here. And so I would say, okay, let's walk through each one of those. What happens when you don't do this? What's the consequence? Mm-hmm. What are you not knowing, or what's going to be the advantage to the customer, the competition, or not being able to get with the customer to identify their needs? And so if you look at, we're not trying to enforce processes on people in the HVAC business just to be, because we said it, that's the way we do it. We're trying to say, okay, so if you don't measure that attic opening, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, what's the risk we face? We had one guy, we returned him to the community, but he
returned him.
He had to go back to the same house 3 times in 45 minutes because he kept taking the wrong measurements.
Yeah, like, dude, pull out your tape measure. Yeah, we had this funny little sidebar. We had a customer that called and asked for this tech that didn't work for us for that long, and they requested this tech. And my dad was answering phones back in those days, and he said, well, we've invited him back into the community.
Awesome. That's funny.
So he won't be available, but yeah, I mean, so we'll tell him, like, hey, you not taking out your tape measure and measuring for 30 seconds costs us 2 hours of running around.
That's inefficient.
From that. That's insane. And I said, you're so short-sighted. We're trying to explain in the text. You being late by 1 hour screwed up 9 people. Okay, because now we got to call these dispatchers or CSR has got to call these customers. We got to move this guy around on the board. He was supposed to be at his daughter's, birthday, whatever. Like, it's just focus on being on time and your processes. And as a tech, you probably do almost your entire job on just that.
Yep.
It's been good. Like, I think our lesson we learned this year was, I was too busy, which just means that I just need to push stuff off of me onto other people, and I need to make this a top priority, which is focusing on marketing spend. I think we overspent on marketing, and we learned a lesson in that. And I was talking to...
well, when you're starting out, you almost have to, right, to figure out what works.
Yeah. But, I think we need a more dynamic approach than just digital. We created, we went to a big event. There was 3,000 first responders at. We built the tent, the table, all that stuff. We spent, and then we had hand flyers that, I mean, it was a hit. Every single person came up to our table and had the hand flyer, and it's
like July 6th in a mall parking lot with asphalt this thick.
It was cooking.
And we had fans with our name and logo and a QR code they would scan to,
go ahead
to
and
our
book it
website.
straight to the booking. Yeah,
Yes,
for veterans
straight
and
to
first responders and
becoming a first responder, member.
So this
And
is
we did like $38,000 in the first 3 or 4 weeks.
So this is what I say to people that like I think there is a debate in the industry on like charge $99 for a membership and cover all systems, or charge what you're worth. And to me, like, that's such an old school approach to like, because here's my thing. I think it's a short-sighted view. If you charge $20 a month, or you charge whatever, $200 for the first system, $100 for the second, what's your close rate? Are you closing 30-40% of that? Because we're at 84% close rate on new customer to member on the year.
That's impressive, man.
We're closing. I don't want to buy them again next year through marketing. Do I want them to click on another ad, or would I rather just stay in front of them as a member? And so the argument I make is that we had 22 veterans and first responders on this thing. We were kind of testing it. It was like a free membership for veterans, first responders. Why them? First of all, they do so much for the community, and not enough is given back to them. But second of all, they're both a brotherhood. Yep. Police officers, firefighters, veterans, they all get together, and so by the time we were at 20 members, we had done $70,000 in revenue.
That's awesome.
So, okay, cool. Add up the 200 or 300 times 20. Congrats. You got some annual recurring revenue.
Yes.
We just did $70,000.
That's awesome.
And that happened in 2 months or 3 months. A big chunk of it was a guy that was a police chief for a certain county, and he had this problem that no one could figure out. We just went over there to just do like a tune-up, because you just became a member, and they were like, hey, we've had 2 or 3 companies look at this, and they can't figure out why all this growth is going on the outside of our ducts and blah blah blah. And he said, you know what? I'm going to send Drew out here. He'll do a load calculation, see if we're sized right and all this. And so ultimately we ended up, I think he did about $35,000 in work. We did, an advanced system on one floor, a basic system on the other, and we replaced and redesigned the ductwork, and we helped him figure out that his attic is not getting enough airflow. So a roofing contractor came in and put on some commercial grade whirly birds. Like, you don't have to do like the solar fans. It was the effectiveness of that. So he did 3 of them because he had these 3 weird kind of attics. And
there you go. Solve the problem.
Yeah, just because he's a police chief, you think he can't afford 30. He's about to retire. His wife's 15 years younger than him. He wants her taken care of forever. That was it. He was like, fix the problem. I'll pay for it with a check.
Look at that. That's crazy. Not prejudging the call. I'm telling you, the city government is where the action's at.
Yeah.
We're all over that. And it's affordable, like you said. It's very affordable.
Yeah.
But there's hundreds of thousands. The community is so large. The police, the fire, and all those communities, the people that work for the city, they're in constant contact with the customer. They send them the water bill every month, right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm just so fascinated by your story. I mean, and I wanted to get it out there to everyone to show that you can do this, and you can do it in a really great way, not the traditional way. And that's what we're promoting here. We promote the fact that you have to build efficient businesses with processes. Now, there's a lot of companies out there learning process, but they're very inefficient, right? And they're over-processed. So that's the point when people are listening. Well, we have process, but probably you're over-processed. And that is where a lot of the confusion, the chaos, and all that comes from. And this is your second time at Billy Go, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And you brought a whole bunch of people with you.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit around and talk to each person around the company and how we do things. And so they're here just to get better all the time. We're trying to get better. And everything you're talking about, I just love. And you're just proving again that you don't have to hire from within the industry. You don't have to be from within the industry. In fact, I think the greatest strength you guys have is you knew nothing about it. And so you can develop your own business with common sense instead of what you're being told by gurus and best practices groups that are doing it the old way, I guess you could say, or just a non-efficient way. Yeah. Just a standard way, I guess you could call that. And coming in, I mean, I'm the same way. You know, I don't know anything about how to fix an air conditioner or any of that. I've never been a technician. I mean, if I was, I might be stuck. You're allowing yourself to breathe is really what you guys are doing. You're allowing yourself to breathe and go, take a deep breath, look at it, and then make change and fix it. And then one of the things I really love about your story is you're not stopping. You're not talking about, oh yeah, so we did all that and now we're just going to rest on our laurels. You're already talking about the next thing that you're going to do. And the whole thing about this entire podcast that we're doing right now, the focus hasn't been on revenue. Isn't that crazy? Go to any other podcast or anything else. Yeah. Social media, it's always about revenue. And I love that about it because revenue is a byproduct of a really well-run business. It'll come and it'll produce the margins that it's supposed to produce if we don't focus on that.
Profit is the byproduct of
it.
Yeah, profit.
Massive.
I went to one trade show, I won't say which one, but everyone's talking top line revenue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm doing 8 million. You know, that's all they want to say. They probably don't even know what the other number is, but
yeah. I just love, you know, with the technology we're building processes like you're talking about. We're building processes. We're not building a bunch of stuff, tacking it on, making it more difficult. The whole idea is how do we make it easier, more efficient, simplify the process, the thinking process, make your jobs easier so that you can do more with it. And you are doing that from day one. I mean, literally everybody, I need to remind you, we're an hour plus into this deal. These guys moved from another city, started a company with, I don't know, did you put $1 million into it? How much money did you stick into the company to get going?
A few $100,000.
A few $100,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which I felt like, oh man, we did it we did it a different way than doing the 20,000 and the work for home warranty forever. And then I just heard about a local company in our market that spent $2 million and they're struggling. You know, to $2 million on startup and they're really struggling. And
wow.
I think that I think what I'm thinking of when y'all talk about profitable revenue and not just top line is just like smart revenue, right? Like I don't care. Like, again, I just always go to the analogy of like, I'd rather make $1 million net on 5 million than on 10 million and have twice the staff. Yep. And, you know, it's like, you don't need this position in the business until it can afford to pay for it. Like if you have a service manager and you take them completely out of the field, how is that making enough money? Well, you could be saving enough in warranty with more training or more teaching them, you know, how to sell higher efficiency or whatever. It will pay for itself. There is a process that exists if you can just focus on that.
That's great. You know, most people just kind of like they're struggling and want to get to the next level. They have more stuff. And as you grow, this is because this is super for you guys, the point you're at. As you grow, there's just this tendency to go out and I call it collecting people. Like, oh, you know, now we're this size. We need to add this person over here to do this, or payroll's getting messed up, so let's go add somebody to focus just on that piece of the payroll, or you know, we need to add somebody to the accounting department for this. And before you know it, you have this just fat organization that isn't making as much money on a percentage basis as it was when it was much leaner. But that's not to say you shouldn't add people. When you add people, especially overhead people, when you know that there's going to be a return on investment, it's like you're going to invest the money in those people, and just like you're going to invest money in marketing or anything else that you invest in, you should have a measurable ROI. And if that, you know, that position or that person isn't meeting those ROI requirements, then you need to figure out something else.
Well, we think it starts on the front end where not everybody gets to be in the club. You know, our job is to explain what we do and then to separate those who can from those who can't and those who will from those who won't.
That's right.
Well, because some can and they won't. Some will never be able to, but they want to. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of aligning things in a way that says, you know, I told Billy earlier that Ross Perot, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "Eagles don't flock, you pick them one at a time."
Well, and like on that note, really quick, if you can start back at the beginning when you hire someone and ask them where they want to end up, and you can show that you're going to invest in that, like, I don't need to ask right now. My people are downstairs taking notes. When we went to this one event, because we don't go to 16 events where we get to go to all the fun social media pictures with everyone else, we've been to one as a team, and night one was meet back in the room. We're standing in front of a large sticky note whiteboard thing, and what do your notes say? And everyone, we just went through as a full download on notes. And then the second day after we all drove home, we met again. We went over those notes. So we're there to absorb, learn, implement, and it's not just like an expense on the P&L to like go travel around and hit every single event you can. Like, if there's not a return on going to that, if there's not an efficiency learned from that, why are you going? I'm not here to chop it up. You know, I'm wasting my time with this person and not with my kid, you know, or something more that would matter.
Love that.
One story I would tell, and I'll be done here. When I was trained sales organizations, is you got to know why you're doing what you're doing. So one day, this wife says to the husband as he's going to work, she goes, "Would you stop and get me a 10-pound ham on the way home from the butcher and have him cut the last 2 inches of the bone off, or have him cut the last 2 inches off?" And he goes, "Okay." So he does that. He comes back home and he says, "Why do we cut the last 2 inches off?" She goes, "I don't know. My mom used to do that." So they call mom on the phone. So, "Why do you cut the last 2 inches of the bone off?" She goes, "I don't know. My mom used to do that." So they get a three-way with grandma going, And they said, "Why did you cut the last 2 inches of the ham bone off?" And she goes, "Because my pan was only this wide." So as we go through building processes, I would ask people, "So here's how you're doing it now. Why are we doing that?" And they'd go, "Ham bone."
Yeah.
Ham bone.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, Bobby.
Cool.
Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you guys coming up here. I surprised them. They didn't know they were going to be on this podcast today, so I wanted to catch them unprepared. That's what I like to do. I've gotten my co-host used to that. Please like and subscribe our channel. We're on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcast. We're all over the place. We're growing like crazy. Get you this free information to help you grow your businesses. Come and see us at Billy Go. I think that it's worth the investment. I mean, here it is, October 1. It's still hot in Houston, Texas, and these guys are still up here trying to learn more and be more efficient and run their businesses, in a way that's going to allow them the freedom that they deserve instead of the chaos that we all inherently create in our businesses. Let's get rid of all that. And that's what they're here to do. And I applaud them for bringing a whole bunch of their people up here. Basically, did you shut down the business to come up here?
No, it's like maybe half the team.
Half the team?
Yeah.
And neither one of you guys have been on your phone since you've been here, about 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, it's vibrating, but
yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
But thanks for having us and letting us do this.
Thank you.
I'd also add, find us on social media. I'm sure I don't want to speak for everybody else here, but I'm pretty sure that's how we met, Drew.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Social media. We never even met in person, right? And so sometimes we talk trash in the social media stuff, but for me, it's enabled me to, get to know amazing operators like these guys and other people. Like sometimes I'll never meet these people in person. You feel like you know them. I have partners that I hadn't met in person until we had our first meeting, and it just kind of like blew my mind. So social media is good for that. Like the direct connections, and you have to weave through a whole bunch of crap and some loudmouth stuff and some whatever distracting stuff, but it really is good. So find the podcast on social media, reach out to us individually on social media. Sometimes we get back to you, sometimes we don't, we try, but I'd encourage that piece as well.
Great.
Well, thank y'all. Have a great day. Let's go learn some more.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome, guys.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sera Systems. At Sera Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit Sera.tech today. That's Sera, Sera.tech today.